glad you have your hat on, Nancy, but you don't need it. I've got a 4-month COVID haircut underneath me, and I look like my sister now.
All right, we hold on.
Like bike crash things.
Okay,
So like not like real, bad bike crash stuff, but like hiding like little bike crash.
Okay. All right. Well, we are live right now, so John's going to introduce you before we get too far into it.
Yeah. All right. So this is great. So we are live on Facebook and we're recording. I'm John Mercer, the president of Las Vegas Triathlon Club. I've got Bob Gamble here with me, ambassador of the Triathlon Club, and we are really excited to talk with Nancy Jones. This is our Las Vegas Triathlon Club Coach Spotlight. And this will be fun to talk with Nancy about her coaching philosophy, how she approaches coaching, her interactions. But I also have to say, Nancy is an elite athlete, and it's been really fun to watch you be successful at different races. I know you've qualified for Kona at least twice right now, and you've had the highs of those big races, and I know I also know that you're very honest with your approach to racing, and you've had some challenges too, which I think really people are impressed with how you've handled those, and maybe we'll get into those a little bit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, and that's mutual, John. I mean, I think like you've paralleled much what you said about me, and we've kind of taken that road together.
Yes, I don't know if
I've enjoyed watching you do the same, and had discussions with you about our very real road, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate
it. No, that's great, and I think we actually really probably met at Vineman. I know we met here in Las Vegas, but I think it was really Vineman that we raced together, and that was fun to see each other. I think I saw you. You were in the zone. I don't think you quite saw me, but that was a hot day.
Well, so and that was Vineman before it became Ironman, right? And
That's
that
right.
was when you put up the asking about the mistakes on the Tri-Club page. That was the race. That was a learning race. That was the one where I probably learned more in that single race than my entire career so far. I mean, it sucked during it, but it's a wonderful teacher after the fact. That was one of the lows. Good low. But,
that's awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Bob, and Bob's going to do a nice introduction for you, and we're going to get started talking about your coaching career that you've had.
Well, I'm going to segue off of what John just said about, and what you said about that learning experience and at Vineman. There's a saying, what is it? Smooth water and calm winds don't make a good sailor. And you've lived the experience and learned the lessons, and that makes you both a better athlete and a coach. So
honestly, if things are going too smoothly before a race, I start to get nervous. Like if travel plans are going well, or my family's perfect and doesn't need anything before, I start to get nervous. Like, this isn't right. I'm going to have a terrible race, because I need chaos and every kind of thing beforehand, almost like to earn it. I don't know what it is.
No. Stress is a great motivator. Stress is a good motivator, and you need it to get started. So we're speaking of an introduction. Nancy is, as John has already mentioned, is an elite athlete, and as well as a superb coach, and the two go hand in hand, because before she can coach, you have to have the credibility, for one, and then for two, so she practices what she preaches. I know that. I've talked with Nancy a lot about that. And the other thing is, she puts into practice what she preaches in order to become that level of an athlete. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Nancy's philosophy of coaching, and just just to get in there, tell us about your clients, and what kind of clients do you have? What kind of clients do you like to teach? And tell us about them, because I know you have a good connection to your clients. So that's where we'd like to start.
Absolutely. Like I feel as though when I was just getting started coaching, that was also the time that Vegas started booming with triathlon, period. Like 10 years ago, about, was really when it started to build, I think, at least for my time here. And when I first started coaching, getting started at that perfect time when everybody's coming. I was getting all sorts of athletes, and I was big on the local scene. I was doing well racing, and I already had a a really well-known position in the gym as a fitness trainer, and so it was a very natural. It was a very natural thing. And again, I'm getting all sorts of different athletes for different reasons. Because having strength and conditioning background and doing PNF, people recovery for recovery or rehab type things, or and I was getting all sorts. And then over the years, it's almost as though it filtered into, not like I'm only taking these kinds of athletes, or this is what I like, or whatever, but it filtered into, I started receiving the athletes and really maintaining the athletes throughout a long career that had the same kind of, views that I had, or my philosophy, and that really looking for it for a lifetime thing that would be a culture within their world that benefits their life in other areas, not like performance, like
right.
podium. But it's a wonderful thing, and it's not that performance or podium doesn't matter to me. It's that this matters more. It really finding the ways that multi-sport or endurance athleticism, whatever, can improve your world, besides just having the best bike or whatever,
or being on the podium. It's more of a lifestyle, and it sounds like your clients came to you because birds of a feather flock together, and you.
And I think what happens to a lot of coaches that have been in it for a while, that you start to there's this energy that you're putting out there, and you start to bring in that same kind of mindset, or you brainwash them, whatever. But it's, I can't say that I only I work best with beginners or only take beginners, but it's definitely with the beginners that you can make the biggest changes in life, and in loving the sport, and have right at the onset be able to give them tools to keep with it forever, instead of I did triathlon once until my knee hurt, or then I whatever reason they got turned off it, and so on and so forth. And so that's always my goal, is like getting them into it for the long haul, is so that they can experience all of the other things that triathlon brings to us, besides just medal.
And that is so impressive, that you get people a foundation of the sport and a foundation of the fitness and the lifestyle, and you don't just say, they don't just say, I want to work for 3 months and do this triathlon. It's for you, it's a lifestyle, and it's getting them healthy, which is, for the community itself, it's, that all the performance comes later.
Right. Yeah, and, and I have plenty of people that come to me, and they have the checklist agenda. And I said, okay, yeah, we're going to do this, but I have an agenda, and they're going to stick with me for the next race. And the next race is just, I'm fully honest about that. Like I'm like, oh, okay, this is your C race. I'm not telling them that, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make them fall in love with it and appreciate it. And so,
yeah, It's a heuristic learning. I mean, you're all over this. It's like they learn and they don't even realize they're learning. The fact that
yeah, I call it backdoor style. I make them think it was their idea, but it was me coming in backdoor. Oh no, I'm saying too much to say it all.
Yeah, that's so cool. You know, I understand that you can also, as well as bringing them into the sport and nurturing them in the sport and getting a lifelong, not a commitment, but a lifelong love of working out. I understand you can also berate and, you know, be kind of what's the word? You know, you can be forceful in your training.
Yeah, and there's really only
in your coaching, I mean.
Only one, you know, one besides, like, let's say that I have somebody preparing for an Ironman. I'll exploit her right now. Kate Olson's preparing for an Ironman, and I have to stay on her about getting her volume in, because otherwise her you know, you do an Ironman without getting the appropriate training, and it's a nightmare. But that's pretty traditional. The other thing that I'm constantly like, just please is the strength feature, being strong enough and having some sort of strength ritual in there within your training. And I know it's a lot. It's like, oh, I don't. We could get into this some other time. I don't feel as though your strength ritual has to be that much at all to keep you strong enough for.
But still, it's vital for injury prevention, so that you can.
It has to be there. That is what I am just nagging incessantly about, and I actually don't even really need to nag that much about it, because inevitably, if it's not there, something's gonna, you know, start to break down.
Well, you know, please forgive me for this analogy, but as a mom, you know what's best for your kids, you know, and it's like you know that they're going to need that strength.
Yeah, or even better, you know, they're gonna experience what happens when that component isn't there. I even as coming from a strength coaching background, I've even done it where I didn't have my strength component there, and it was bad, you know, and so we learn from it. So whether it's either, you know, they're maintaining the ritual out of faith because their coach is telling them to do so and they do what their coach says, or if they had an experience where they didn't stay on top of that, you know, they're gonna learn. And it's always, you know, no matter how you learn it, it's always a great thing that you learned it. Hopefully it was in a means of where nothing too terrible happened. You had a nice lesson, but nothing that took you out of the game. And again, that's a whole other thing. The strength component's a whole other Zoom talk, you know.
Yeah. So Dan, I want to jump in, Bob, for a second. I love this. This is really good information, but I'm curious, do you do a lot of debriefing with your athletes after a race and just sort of, you know, go through what happened, what worked, what didn't work? How do you tease that out?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like the race is never just it. It's like the debriefing is it. You know, it's you know, I don't know. I like to think of us as always being in this state of being incomplete. Like there's never this perfect end race. Not even Kona. I mean, we
constantly learning.
Kona, like, do you think you're done after Kona? Like, no. It's just whether it's Kona or another race, or in whatever, you know, whether it's a certain phase of your life. Like I did Kona, you know, and then later on had a baby, and then it's just like what's training and racing life after the baby. And same with all of my clients. It's just the debriefing is everything, not the race. You know, I mean, that's my opinion. We're just always in a state of growth, no matter what your season looks like, even if it's COVID season. You know, there's a whole other type of change and personal setup. So
you're constantly learning and constantly on the journey. It's not an end. It's not a destination.
Yes.
I don't want to steal your trade secrets, but I'm curious because after a race, you know, if you talk with someone right at the finish line, you'll probably get a different set of feedback than if you wait a month. So what's your window of where you try to have that conversation?
Oh, I like it during all of it, because
Oh,
I mean, it's going to be, there's constant conversation. I like the post, just post race finish, because you know your adrenaline's through the roof, and you'll never do a race again, and yet you're the happiest you've ever been in your life. And there's just so many polarities going on, and it's beautiful. And it crossing any finish line, you know, is wonderful. No matter if it was the best race in the world, or no matter if it was a matter of survival, it's just wonderful that they're there. But then I'm still working with these people. Like, it's not just cutting off after the race. There's recovery weeks. There's constant communication. I mean, I talk with my clients constantly. There's constant communication about, you know, how are you recovering? How are you feeling? Make sure you're getting your water and this and that. And then it's discussion about, this is probably when you're going to start to feel good again. Maybe not. Talk to me, let me know. Everybody's different. And then everybody, depending on what their next thing is, you know, there's this constant communication all along. I don't have like a marks, you know, that it's nonstop. So yeah.
that's great. I think that really shows your motivation to work with athletes, and that real hands-on caring approach that you're known for with an athlete.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
you really, well, you know, you do a lot, you know, you do a lot with Rock and Runners. You're getting that started again, and you're really engaged with the athletes. I always see that, and I think that's,
Thank you.
those
Thank you very
things
much.
I hear.
That's a huge compliment to me. Thank you.
Well, and I know you love to write too. So, and I've always enjoyed reading what you write, because it's very, very much on point and to the heart, and you really put things out there, and so it's neat to hear.
Well, I haven't put a lot of writing stuff out there lately, because I'm working on my own little literary project. Actually it's big. I'm really trying to put everything together, like as we're discussing here in a book.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been, I'm trying real hard to gather a lot, and I think I've got a lot of great stuff. So hopefully when it's time to get that out there, you'll read it. Spread the
That's
word.
great. So look, I want to get a little bit of a timeline. When did you decide to start coaching?
I was personally, I think it was a little too early, honestly. I started coaching only when I was like 4 years into racing, maybe.
Yeah.
But I wasn't charging. I was experimenting and working with people for free. It was like, you know, 6-7 years in that I started to turn over more to where I was like this strength coach and tri coach thing, and they've always worked well hand in hand. And even when, you know, like say when I was pregnant with my daughter, and then you know, at home with her, even though I was 100% just coaching there because I was at home with her, I'll never let go of strength coaching. Yeah. And so it wasn't. I say I started too soon, not in that I did something foolish with people. It's just I look back and I wouldn't recommend fully. I don't know. I don't know how to say this right. I'm a student of the sport constantly. I'm constantly learning. I'm always in the trenches. Yeah. I'm always in the trenches with my clients and learning with them. And so it's just when I look back and think how soon I started, and I'm like, you know, but not that anything bad happened or whatever. It was just a little early. So I'm glad that I was, you know, it was very apparent that it was an experiment, and I was like,
well, I think we evolve, you know, not only as athletes, we evolve as, you know, our engagement with the sport in general, and obviously as coaching. And I think that again is something that is really neat to see what you've done, and, you know, you've evolved, you've
Yes.
changed over time, and one's not necessarily better than the other, but you're always trying
Yeah.
to improve and learn, take what you've done and rethink it. So I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
That's oh, go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
No, finish your thought.
It's it's funny you bring that up, like that evolving, that changing. That's something I experience quite a bit now that I've been, you know, coaching for a good while. The clients that I'm very fortunate, clients stay with me. I might not have millions of clients, but they're with me for a long haul. And so I see their evolution. And it's funny how it's like we think like just because we're staying in the sport so long that we're gonna like just shoot up to the top. We're all just gonna get better, and we're all gonna go to Kona. We're all gonna win, whatever. And it's that's not necessarily, you know, the way. What happens is life happens because we're the average age group triathlete, and we're managing families, careers, and whatever, and just life changes. And so it's just we take this really wacky route at all times. But those that are brave enough to stay with it and you know, have maybe they're not their fastest anymore. Maybe they're things they these people end up so much more dimensional, in my opinion, and so much stronger in so many ways. And this is like a regular thing that I have to point out to my clients. Like, sure, that you know, you had a season that changed, and you didn't have the best performance in the world, but you stuck with it in some capacity. Like whatever, it was just staying in shape or whatever. Got a degree, had a child, and you get to come back to this, and then you get to learn and re-feel again what it's like when you were a beginner to start. And it's this beautiful thing, and it's interesting. It's awesome.
So I love this. This is really good. Now you are an elite athlete, and you have crossed the finish line in top spots, and you've had that thrill of finishing that way. But you've also had the thrill of watching people finish their first race, as well as
Yeah.
to have, you know, great races themselves. All right, so if you would just sort of compare your feelings, or how you interpret crossing that finish line as a success, and also seeing someone else cross that finish line that you've worked
Good
with.
question.
Yeah. So my own finish lines, for example, like there's the obvious one, which is Kona. You know, I did Kona twice, and the crossing the finish line is out of this world. It's like every cliche that you can imagine, you know. And you've seen it, experienced it, and have most respect for it. And both those races, it was 2 years back to back, and I was just in shape for 2 years. You know, it was hard work, but it was almost like it was just smooth. Then I had my daughter, and that little girl kicked my ass inside it out, turned me inside out, literally. My whole body changed. And you know, I went to St. George, and I had a 70.3, my favorite race, first 70.3 after having her. And I thought I was ready. I was half person. I had my first DNF, first and only DNF, and a quarter of a mile from the finish line. So I thought I was gonna die. My body shut down. It was terrifying. And so then, you know, the next year I did that race again, and I'm sure I don't even know what my time was, but it was not fast compared to, quote, what I used to be. This is what a lot of people say, what I used to be, what I used to do. But it was the most emotional and wonderful
Mhm.
race to cross that finish line, because I came back from something, and that's my example. And to see, I've seen clients do that all the time, and several clients that there's just so much imperfection on the road to the finish line, and so much like hardship or chaos. It was way harder than the perfect training plan. And that finish line crossing, to me, and I hope to them, means more than any podium ever. I just, that's always my, it's kind of always my underlying thing with this is it this improving our lives versus this, we're trying to be something in triathlon. Like it just, triathlon just makes us better, just makes us stronger. I think you know what I mean.
No, that
Sometimes I'll write it well and articulate it well, and then it comes out of my mouth like,
no, that's fantastic, because you started off talking about how it's really a lifestyle, and your coaching philosophy is really to teach people about how to have a triathlon lifestyle in a very positive way, because we know it can be very negative, but to do it in a very positive way. And so it's neat to hear you talk about the thrill of watching someone you've worked with in that journey to get to that finish line. That's really neat.
yeah.
And
Longer than a minute, the the more perfection that you expect, or just the I don't know, the less that you have to overcome during it. I mean, the less satisfying. And I'm very fortunate to coach just incredible, multifaceted people that are doing so much in the world besides triathlon. Just I'm so lucky to coach people I do and learn from them, because they're all either just brilliant at their craft or work, or just amazing parents or something. And it's always going to be something that they put first before triathlon. Maybe not have the ideal race, but then that race was just even more incredible for that reason.
That's great. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, it's wonderful that we talked about this and you laid out your foundation of your coaching and your philosophy, because it's wonderful to see that is so important to you, as far as what you and that just speaks volumes of the core of what you do for your folks. I know there's a lot of people. Go ahead.
No, I just say, like, it's not, and it's not that, like, training and programming isn't important. That's huge. That's everything. That's the safety of your people in your hands, and their experience and their performance. It's just, no matter what it is in that area, it's always going to come back to the foundation, the beginning,
Right. Now that's a good segue, because right now we were talking about the foundation and your philosophy, and we wanted to hear that, and that's just rock solid. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who want to know a little bit about the technicality and the details of some of your coaching. So I was just wondering, to put a little bit of the technical aspect on it. Do you test your people, and how do you use the results of the test to feed back to them, and how do you communicate with them? Do you communicate with email, phone, text? How do you do that? And what kind of data can you collect? Can we drill a little bit into the weeds?
Yeah, I can tell you, like, the process start to finish. Of course, everybody's a little different. Like, it's a range. For the everybody meets with me face to face to start, unless they're out of state, of course. Then hopefully we do something like this. If they're out of state or something, it's very important still that I get to see them and do this, and they get to see body language. You know, I'm a big, you know, it's important for them to see that I get to see their reaction. It just helps me read well into what they need. Like, I'm a big psychology person with this, and I enjoy that with the one-to-one clients. And then I also like to sit back and watch larger picture, larger like sociological experiment, if you will. But so I meet people, and then based on where they are in the sport and what they need, that's where we know to start. So I'll give you an example. If they're beginners, which I do get a lot of beginners, we're gonna have it set up where I'm going to see them so many times in a month to work on their swim, their bike, their run. And usually the swim is the biggest thing, and even if they're even if they have bike and run issues that they're more concerned with, I insist on meeting them for the swim. This is my compulsion, my need, because I need swim form is everything, and it can just the little slightest, even if they're great swimmers, slightest changes in swim form can change a lot for their race. And if they don't have any form at all, then obviously we need to change that right away. And then the bike and the run, if anything, if I don't have regular times where I'm going to see them for clinics or whatever, this is all set up in advance. I'll always invite my clients to either ride with me on Sundays. Sundays are my long rides, and they can either do the whole ride with me or just do little bits with me. And Saturday mornings, I usually have my Rock and Runners group, and that's a great time where I can check in on their form, see how they're doing. And I usually have clinics set up too. So depending on what they want for the in-person stuff, working on the actual disciplines, they can schedule swim, bikes, and runs with me throughout the week for the month or whatever. And we go from there based on person to person. But Rock and Runners, swim clinics, Sunday riding, I'm going to have a Zoom bike class again. These are all times where everybody can check in regardless and work on a discipline with me. But again, that's all. I don't have just set times where this is where you can swim with me, bike, and run with me. We're constantly texting and working things out, and that's what I do because I'm fortunate enough to do this full time. So that's kind of like the in-person stuff. I do a heart rate zone run test, even if everybody knows their zones or they've been tested a million times. This is mandatory because I have a different language when talking about heart rate zones with both biking and running. And I go through all of that with them, and I insist that they speak my language on that. They're free to speak their own language in every other way, but with heart rate zone training and racing, especially with long course, I have a specific language. So they do that with me. If they're at the level where they have a power meter for their bike, we do a power test and we go through that. But still, the heart rate zones rule the roost. We'll always come back to that. So that test is mandatory. And then the first, so once I kind of check in on their abilities in their 3 disciplines, and then go over the heart rate zone test if they want to do a bike power test and all of that. And I monitor this through either Garmin Connect, some Training Peaks, even though I no offense to Training Peaks, I just don't prefer it. Or they're just sending me their data. They have a week, every week they send me their data by a certain time. The volume and the programming that I'm sending them, it gets sent out to them every week. And if I usually only like to send a week at a time, they will know where things are headed, and they will recognize a pattern in their training and their build. But I like to send things only a week at a time because it forces them to talk to me every week. If I haven't talked to you during in a week. Like that's crazy if I've had to find a week. They know I'm going to start like, you know, I need to see this stuff. And I'll get anxiety about it probably even more than they will.
And you have to assess them or their past performance to know how you're going to schedule them for the next week.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. And I can't just send them stuff, like feel like I can safe, especially when it's like getting into the either a real beginner that's beginner. If I don't know that they've been putting the pounding on themselves and building up, then I can't just send them the next thing because if they're new and their tissue and their connective tissue is new, if they haven't been doing it and I up the volume, then I'm going to mess them up badly. And then if they're you know long course you know half and full Ironman and they're going from their you know their whatever 60-mile ride bumping it to 80-85. I mean even that is huge if they haven't been putting away and they go up there. And so there's so many examples. And then there's the heat, especially right now. There's this, nobody is properly trained for this. Nobody is trained for this severe change in heat. Heart rate changes, everything changes. If I don't talk to you regularly, I'm like, you need to have more water and electrolytes, this and that. Hey, baby, can I say hi real quick? Say hi and then you gotta go. All right, or don't say hi. Bye. So she's like, then that's a dangerous thing too. There are so many reasons that I need to communicate properly. So while it would be easier on them to send 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm like, hi, yeah, that's her. That too did my 70.3 and that one.
That's right. That's right.
I'm so sorry. This is real life. Real.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there.
Real Housewives of Triathlon.
No, Real Housewives are homestead.
So they get their stuff. They get their stuff week by week. However, you know, it's not like oh no, she doesn't send my plan. What am I doing tomorrow? Everyone's gonna settle into a pattern of what works for them. And they kind of know where things are going because we've discussed it. So yeah.
That's great. And you know, I appreciate the kids running around and it is challenging juggling all this, but you do it. And you know, not only are a successful athlete and coach, but a successful mom and
Thank you. I have a
really
lot
juggle it all. So
I have a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of help. I'm very fortunate. But
you know, Nancy, I've always enjoyed talking with you. I really love your approach as a coach. We could continue and go, but we said we'd keep you for about half an hour, and we've already gone well beyond that. So this is just fun to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you.
If maybe we can close on, you've already answered this, but maybe just sort of close up on how you define success as a coach and as an athlete.
So I've obviously thought about this a lot. I have some role models that whom I really look up, and you know, you guys, you guys have been in the game for a long time. You and Laura have been out there and growing with the sport and bringing people into the sport, and it's just, you know, it's that total poetry to me. And there's some pillars in the community, like you know, Cindy Plutko. I mean, Jackie Arcana is my hero. I went to emulate her in every capacity. One of the underlying, you know, things that all of you have, besides just being in it for a long time, is just getting stronger, learning how to remain injury free and keep going and keep your ego in check. And to me, that's hugely successful from an athlete, and obviously a coach's perspective, because a coach has to, walk the walk. And, for to be a successful coach, it's and if I'm helping people to fall in love with the sport and to enrich their lives in other ways because of the sport, then that's what it's all about. And if I'm helping to keep them safe and keep them thinking about just these things that I'm mentioning now, helping to share that culture, then that's successful to me.
That's awesome. And really, I just jotted down, you really are someone who helps someone on the journey, and you're part of that journey with a lot of people. And so it's really, it's really,
thank you. That means a lot to hear. I appreciate it.
Really great to chat with you and have you on as a coach spotlight. So
thank you for having me, you guys. Awesome.
It was good. It was wonderful talking with you.
Anybody wants to join me and do a long ride tomorrow from my house in Green Valley out to Red Rock, do the loop and back? Not saying you have to do the whole thing, of course, but I will be on that route. If you want to message me.
that's great. And I know you're great at getting people down to the lake and doing all sorts of group runs. And I really love to see that as you're a leader in the community. So
thank you. That's same to you guys. Same to you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you for maintaining our club so well as you guys do. I mean, obviously it's everything to me. So I really appreciate all the hard work that you guys put into it so we can have this.
Well, it takes a lot of all of us, and it really, and that's what's neat is when you have good people in the community, it's fun. And I really enjoy seeing what everyone brings to the table in terms of building the endurance community. And,
absolutely.
And you are an important part of that. So I'm going to say thank you. And I'm going to say
you guys.
Thanks to everybody who is listening on Facebook Live. And I'm going to go ahead and stop Facebook Live. And I'm going to stop recording.